Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana, and I'm here today to carry on with this series. This has been it's a great opportunity to connect with all of you and talk about the subtleties and nuances in the tarot. So it's my pleasure to carry on with the series. And I want to thank you for the ongoing requests for various comparisons and so forth. I also want to let you know that I do teach tarot, and I don't know if I have I was a little bit busy this morning and I didn't get a chance to get super organized with banners and all that and so forth. Anyway, I am teaching a very thorough tarot class. It's a 22-week class. If you don't know about this, you can go to my website, integrativhealingwithsadhana.com, and stay with me for 22 weeks and just really get into the nuances of the tarot. I strongly recommend it. The group that I'm working with this year is fantastic. And they have the beauty of a live class is that you get to connect with other people and practice with other people. So that's one of the, for sure, one of the features that, you don't get if you buy a $10 class on Udemy or something like that, and don't get me wrong, there's fantastic classes there as well too. Hello to Viola. It's wonderful that you are here and you're here live and you are here early. So thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Gerald. Hello. And Shannon. Lydianne, good morning. Joel, hello. Welcome to you as well too. Today we are going to talk about the 10th and the 20th Arcanum. And this feels, I don't know, they all feel important. All the cards feel important. And I have found, today I'm going to share with you this particular deck, which is the CS Tarot. There's two different RWSs that I have on my table. One is the CS Tarot, which I love the background, the crackled colors, the muted colors, and so forth. I also have the Universal Weight, this one, the recolorized version. This one photographs really well and looks great on the camera. It's another one that I tend to use. Selena, hello, good morning. And I'm also going to look at the Lily White. And if there's any other decks that you want to look at the 10th and 20th card, and I happen to have them within reach, I'm also, I can grab for those as well too. So let me know. If there are any wheel or judgment cards that you feel particularly challenging, let me know, and I'll try to address those if I'm familiar with them. Okay, so let's get to the cards. And let's just talk a little bit about the energy of these two tens, two tens, 1 10 and 2 10s. X marks the spot and a double X marks the spot. I don't know, there's something about that X, right? It's like, pay attention to me. The answer is here. It's like when you find a treasure, they have a treasure map and you're looking for the X, or even if maybe you're in a big shopping mall, right? And where am I? Where am I? Where am I? And you go and you are here. I feel like there's something about these X's that is important. They stand alone. We see the X's, of course, in the other Roman numerals, but I don't know. There is an X that is in the center of the wheel as well too. If you look into the center of the wheel, and if you have a tarot deck that has spider webs or dream catchers or other interpretations of the wheel, there's often an X or perhaps a cross in the center of the wheel saying you are here. Hi, Richie. Good morning. So there's something about that, and these are significant change cards. They are an opportunity for a fresh start. And one is, I feel, a little more mundane, and one is a little more spiritual. And just where they sit in the Arcanum is where they sit in the major arcana, where they sit in if you look at it as the Fool's Journey, we're a little bit earlier on in discovering who we are. with the turn of the wheel as opposed to with the Judgment card. And I see both of these as a unraveling, both of them as an awakening. I would say awakening fits a lot more with the Judgment card than with the wheel card. There's a sense of fearlessness with the Judgment card. And I feel we always have a choice with this. We can hold back, right? There is that possibility. We can choose to turn our heads. We can choose to put our heads in the sand. But when these two cards show up, they are very much a pay attention to me. And thank you for posting that link, Gerald. I really appreciate it. I just said, am I talking about the wrong cards today? Am I talking about the wrong cards? I can change this. If this is not what I scheduled, I can change this on the fly. I can do that. Just let me go to open another window. Did I talk about this last week? If I did, I apologize. So just let me pause here if I'm in the wrong mindset. If I'm in the wrong mindset, I will shift gears. I'm very happy to do that because I want to stay on track. Wouldn't that be embarrassing if I talked for 40 minutes about the wrong cards? My channel. And oh my goodness, I am talking about the wrong card. Okay, so we're going to switch gears here. And let me do that. And I have no problem. So here we go. So rewind. Did we talk about this last week? We might have done that. Okay. So we're going to talk about today about Justice and the Wheel. So we're going to talk about 10 and 11. Good thing I happen to have the 11th cards on the table. So we're going to switch this one out. And well, maybe you got a little bit of a review there. And then we're going to put Justice on the table, which is here. Okay. 10 and 11. And I guess we're going to have to look at 10 and 11 in different decks as well too, because 11, I will address when the 11th card is Strength, because I think that's an important thing just to touch on here. Okay. So now that we are back in order, I'm going to okay. I have a plan, and I have reviewed this several days ago. I should have reviewed it this morning, and I usually do that. But like I said, I came to my tarot table quite quickly this morning. So today we're going to talk about 10 and 11, two sequential cards, particularly when 11 is Justice and the Wheel of Fortune is 10. So what I was saying about 10 being everything I was saying about 10 is still very much applies. This is a card of change. We are sitting in the center with the 11th card. So the very center of those 21 cards. And when you lay the cards out 7, 7, 7, and Justice is number 11, it sits in the very center. So not only does it sit in the middle of the center septenary, it sits in the middle of the whole set of 21 cards. So this is an important thing to understand. It is sitting there with its scales of balance. It does, of course, represent the astrological sign of Libra. And we see that whole idea of balance represented just by its place in the major arcana. Okay, and we have talked about Justice before, but I will touch on some of the symbols. And so the question here is, what is the difference between 10 and 11? So in a nutshell, 10 is announcing a change. It's announcing a shift. The last 2 weeks, I was doing tarot spreads on the Celtic cross spread. The Celtic cross spread is a spread that contains 10 cards. And one of the ways that I work with that particular spread is I look at the 10th card as the 10th card here. So I look at the 10th card as the wheel rather than a outcome card. I view it with the energy of the wheel. And so what is the energy of the wheel? It's the energy of the seasons. It's the energy of the flow of life. It's the energy of change. It's a card of cycles and connections. And so for some reason, some connections are being brought together to awareness. We are being asked to acknowledge change, to observe the flow of life. When this particular card is your card for the year, it's an amazing card. It's an amazing year to start to dive into astrology or to dive into lunar cycles and to understand the power of the moon in response to how you schedule your life and how you schedule your week. It's such a fantastic deep awareness card. If we flow with the wheel, if we don't resist change, then things tend to flow a lot more easily. For example, when we are in the winter of our life, what does that mean? Does that mean old age? Does that mean we're going through a dormant period? Does that mean that it's actually winter? When we are experiencing a winter of sorts, it's not a time necessarily for fiery activity. It's a time to hunker down. It's a time perhaps to read books or to study or to preserve. And what I have found through experience is that when the wheel card comes up, it's a time to start to pay attention to cycles and have a look at what cycles around you are speaking. Maybe the cycle of life and death is out there and around you. Maybe you are nursing a loved one who is dying. Maybe your sister is pregnant and there's challenges with the pregnancy. Right? It's a real call out to observe cycles and patterns. Perhaps your pet is, the same thing with a pet. There are so many symbols in this particular card, pardon me. One of the things that I've thought of doing over the years is to, when a wheel card comes up and the querent feels like they don't know what this wheel is representing, is to do a 5-card spread. So in the corner of the wheel, we have the 4 fixed astrological signs. So we have the energy of Leo sitting down here. So one of the things that I look for if I'm doing a larger spread is that is there a predominance of fiery energy, or is the fire card connected in some way is it touching here? Is there something about Leo season that feels significant here, or the energy of Leo? And perhaps around the whole of the wheel, there's matching cards. Maybe there happens to be an earthy Taurus card. Maybe there's a King of Pentacles that's sitting right here. And so you can look actually to the signs and symbols in your card. And not all wheel cards have these 4 fixed astrological symbols around the outside. Some of them have a sun and a moon. And so you want to look to the symbology of your card, because that can give you clues as to which symbol you need to pay attention to. Maybe, the Sphinx sits up here at the top of the wheel in the RWS, very, I feel like kind of haughtily. And perhaps the Chariot card shows up, and you have a traditional deck where the Sphinxes are leading the Chariot. And there's this, almost like an arrogance to the reading. And with that Sphinx sitting up there, I sense, and the Chariot showing up, there's a conversation there to be had. Maybe you have a Maybe you want to connect this figure here to the Devil card and talk about a change that is being represented by the Devil. Perhaps the snake is speaking to you, and in your deck there are multiple cards that have snakes, and there's something about the message of the snake. Is the message of the snake, about a winding path, a more kind of Lenormand-esque kind of interpretation? Is it about shedding of the skin, which fits in perfectly with change? If you take that kind of Lenormand kind of style reading, it feels like a resistance to change. We want to slow the wheel down. Maybe the snake is talking about spiritual transformation and Kundalini rising or something. So I really pay attention to this loaded card here. It's full of symbols. A change of some sort is in the midst. It's a wheel. What do wheels do? Wheels turn. We can't avoid them from turning. Sometimes they get stuck in the mud. How could we identify mud in the tarot? Right? Maybe there's a bunch of, I don't know, quite literally earth and water sitting down at the bottom of the reading. Maybe there's no fire. There's no masculine suits. It's all, it's all receptive suits. And so that we're going to know that change is going to be more difficult. So to look to the symbols in your wheel card feel really, really important. If you work with the alchemical symbols as well too, you have an opportunity to look to that. The possibilities of working with this card are endless. And sometimes this card will show up when you're looking for directions, north, south, east, west. Which job should I take? Where should I go? And so there may be information on your wheel card about transitioning to the east or the west or the north or the south or the northeast or the southwest or whatever it is. So look to the directions also in the wheel card. You could use the wheel card as a significator if you're looking for specific directions in which way to go, because there will be clues about that particular change. Because when we're asking about moving, it is about change. Okay, so this card sits just before this card of balance. And as we move through this change, there is a reset, right? There's an opportunity for a reset. Don't you love that? I actually really like it. I love it when I reset my computer. I love it when there's one of those little buttons where you can, reset something. It feels like all the energy is cleared. It's quite easy, actually. And so one of the ways I look at the Justice card is this reset. It kind of clears away some of the garbage that we haven't dealt with before. And so if we are resisting the change of the 10, that reset is going to be a little more shocking. And I see justice not only as a legal, of course it can represent legal justice, but what is justice? What is justice? And justice is going to be served whether we like it or not. It's not about what we perceive as just. It's about, I believe, always there's a greater force. And sometimes when we're talking about the legal system, it doesn't feel that way. The outcome is, hello to Jezebel. And Princess, what's her name? I don't believe I said hello to you, Princess, so welcome. Reset to factory settings. It's like an opportunity. It's like a second chance. It's a second chance to get it right. Does that make sense? A second chance. And don't we all want second chances? And so we need to trust justice. Hello, Scarlett. Haven't seen you in ages. It's a chance for it's a chance to move into trust. And if we look at justice as karmic justice, right? Big picture justice, big picture. The universe adjusting things. The universe is adjusting our environment. The universe is adjusting those around us. The universe is, well, you know, I want to, it's just such a gorgeous card. I'll tell you a personal story, okay? So for 2 years, was looking for a home in this particular area where I live. It's a long stretch of coast where there's many towns, and I never even knew that this particular community existed where I landed. I was in a big wheel time of my life. My divorce was in process. We were selling our family home. I knew I had to leave there, find a place on my own. And so for 2 years, I was going back and forth. There's a long drive and a ferry involved, and I knew I wanted to come here. I was being guided. And I came over here homeless. I had one of my daughters and my dog and some possessions in my minivan. The rest went into a small storage locker. Got rid of pretty much everything. And so eventually, at the very end, the last second before my daughter had to go to school, we found this place. A real estate agent found this house that we're renting right now. And it was kind of far away from everything. But there were so many things that felt right. It was a neighborhood, a real neighborhood. It was a small school. Neighbors were friendly. Neighbors were, you know, like what I mean by a real neighborhood. Anyway, so what has evolved over the past almost 4 years is that there was a neighbor across the street who was preparing a path. So it's like the universe was preparing a path for us to come together. And this is a really interesting story. I want to actually sit down and write it down one day. But he was going through a change as well too, and he was winding things up. And there was enough time for him to have another relationship, and eventually, you know, we came together, and everything just sort of came into balance. Energetically, astrologically, we are so, you know, we're so different. We're so sun and moon. And so sometimes what happens is we resist moving to a place we think we don't want to live. We resist the shift in job. I was fighting tooth and nail to reclaim an old job. I was fighting to get back my teaching certification so I could go back and teach public school. You know, I was in legal stuff going on with the British Columbia government so I could go back and have a real job. Anyway, the universe knew better. The universe knew exactly what I was supposed to do. And so this particular time of the wheel is one, if you can at all, possibly, of just stepping out of your way. And sometimes that is so hard. We want to control our lives. We want to control the wheel. And the truth is we can't. We can't. There are so many factors that are in the way that we don't have control of. And there's a beauty to it. There's a lesson in stepping out of the way. And so part of the energy of the middle of the major arcana is learning about trust. It's about, okay, you've put me here. Now what do you want me to do? And it's about listening and so forth. Okay, thank you, Scarlett. Scarlett says, when I lost my childhood home, I resigned from life and for very sick and was in hospital for colitis for a month. you know, it does, but it does lessen. It does lessen. I believe that these aches and pains are part of who we are. And if we can learn to not let them control us, right, those aches and pains, if we learn to just let those aches and pains be a part, it's like observing, when we're observing, you know, anything, sun and moon, angel and devil, dark and light. We need both. We need both. That's a part of us. That's a part of who we are. And so we embrace them as wholeness. And so we don't want to focus on one or the other, but allow both to gel together. Okay, so the wheel is a 10. So what does that signal when I'm looking at tarot readings? Not only do I look at the many symbols that are around the outside of the card, but I want to pay attention to cards like aces. Aces are significant. Aces are going to tell me, I want to step back. I want to say one other thing. I want to look and see if there are aces or if there are tens, because both the aces and the tens, of course, relate to the wheel card. I'm just quickly looking for a 10. Because there's, of course, a difference in energy between aces and tens. So when I see this, I'm going to look for symbols that are on the wheel card. That's kind of step one. And then step two is to look and see, do we have either of these cards? Both of these cards represent, both of these numbers represent change, but it's a slightly different phase of the change. So I'm going to get information from those cards. The other thing that I'm going to look for is to see if there's any pages in the reading, because the pages are also going to help me to understand perhaps what kind of change this is, or where this change is going to go. So there's an abundance of clues that are available about what the nature of this change is. You can also look to cards of speed. So perhaps you have a bunch of knights and maybe an 8 of wands or something showing up. This might show me that this is going to pass quite quickly. Or if there's a bunch of air or something, a bunch of fire, then I know this change is perhaps going to blow through a lot more quickly. But that always isn't the best medicine. We always need to be looking for balance. Where is the balance? And so forth. The Justice card is a master number, right? It's an 11, highly significant number. When I see justice, I want to look for perhaps the moon. The moon is an important card for me. The High Priestess. I don't have all these cards handy here because I was not going to be taught. When I was mucking about before I came on, I was thinking I was in a different mindset. So I want to look for the pillars of the High Priestess. I want to look for the pillars in the moon card. There are also pillars in distance in the death card on the right side at the back. And perhaps this, you know, sorry, I'm stumbling on my words. The information about the kind of justice that is being served will be revealed by other checks and balances, other scales and balances. The other thing that I want to do is have a quick look around and see for the twos, because the twos, or the type of twos that show up, may help me to understand again what kind of adjustment this is, because all of the twos are going to speak to adjustment. And then the other card, which I ditched and quickly, if you weren't here right at the beginning, I started talking about the wrong card this morning. So if perhaps the Judgment card does show up, the Judgment card is it's the 20th card, right? So it's also a 2. So whether you look at it as a 10, like a 10 plus 10, a 1 plus 1, or you look at it as a 20, it's a 2 no matter which way you spin it. So any of these surrounding cards are going to help me to understand the nature of this adjustment, be it legal or karmic or whatever. So the surrounding cards are really, really important. Viola. The wheel is my birth card, but I have not done a deep dive into it yet. So many cards associated with it. Yes, for sure. Okay, so what else do I want to say? Justice. I think we're talking about justice. So talking about strength is really a whole other it's a whole other issue. But when we're talking about justice itself, depending on your tarot deck, there's going to be, so if it is the 11th card, then you have change before it. You have the wheel before it, right? And then after it, you're going to have the Hanged Man. So why would the Hanged Man appear after justice, right? It kind of makes sense, this whole order of the tarot. And we can talk about it in terms of, whatever system that you follow. So the Hanged Man card is there because sometimes the justice that is served is a little bit challenging. And we need to take time to reflect on a different perspective. I mean, there's a reason why these cards come in the order that they do. It's not just some arbitrary thing. So looking on either side of this. Now, if your justice card is 8, right? So this is the Lily White Tarot, and the justice card is 8 here. It has a slightly different feeling to it because now we are at 8, and the similarity here is that after 8 is the Hermit card. And so we go through this adjustment period, and then it's necessary to retreat a little bit. We have to assimilate and to integrate what we moved through, the experience of the Justice card. And then, of course, before that was the Chariot. I have a difficult time going Chariot and then Justice, because to me, the Chariot, while it is associated with, sometimes it's hard for me to talk and find cards at the same time, just double thing. The Chariot, while it is associated with Cancer, so it has this watery energy, I always see the Chariot very much as a fiery card. It's that last card at the end of the first 7 that is urging us to get out of the, our stuck life. The Chariot wants us. So think about the RWS Chariot and think about that walled city that's in the background, right? The Chariot is encouraging us to get outside of the box, to get outside of our comfort zone and to burst forth. So why, if Spirit is asking us to burst forth, must we then right away face justice? It's hard. That's a hard lesson. It's like Spirit says, okay, off you go, young grasshopper, but but you really don't have any control, and I'm gonna press the reset button for you anyway. It's like, it's tough. It's really tough for me to look at it this way. For me to see strength in this position is just, it's so much easier. It makes more sense to me. But I think it's important to work with the deck that you have, not to arbitrarily assign the order of the cards, because there's an energy. I believe if the deck creator created the deck that you are working with in good consciousness, in good conscience, that with awareness and intention, that there's a reason that the cards appear in the order that they appear. So make sure that you are paying attention to the deck that you are working with. Okay. All right. Do you have any questions about these two cards? Because there's a couple of other previous videos that we have looked at, and I kind of feel like I've covered this. But you know what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. I'm going to do a little bit of a reading. I'm going to do a reading. So let me see here. Can't use this. Well, I could use this deck, I suppose. Hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to pull all these cards together. Make sure I don't have a lily white in there. There they are. Okay, and Joel has some more card comparison requests. Excellent. Emperor and the Hierophant, so two strong masculine energies. Kings and the Emperor. This feels like my course, Joel. Chariot and the Eight of Wands. And Chariot and the Knight of Swords. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is totally on the fly. This is what I'm going to do here. I want to look at the energy of change. And you can also do this with the Justice card if you wanted to. When I do a reading and there is a lack of clarity about what the major arcana card means, and if I can't, for some reason, come to a conclusion, I have a preliminary idea about it, and I might say something like, well, let's take out this card. And I'm going to put some cards around it to see if we can understand better what this change is about. And so I leave that card on the table, and I'm going to shuffle. And that's all my question is what is this change about? And so let's take this as a collective reading. Let's focus on the energy of the new moon. We are still within 72 hours of the new moon in Leo. And so let's ask about this next turn of this lunation cycle and see if we can get some information about what our focus might be on this next turn of the wheel. Okay? And I would be doing this perhaps, I mean, of course you could do this as a spread unto itself, but this is using a significator card. It's looking to the energy of the, and if you wanted to, why don't we do this one? Because this is more lunar. Let's put this one in the center. That's a good idea. Then we'll use the lily white. Hopefully I've got all the lily white cards here. Here we go. Right? So we're trying to understand the energy of this lunar cycle. And And so this is for you, this is for me, this is for everybody, about where are we going? So here we have the dark moon, here we have the sun, we have the seasons on this web. So you could look at this as a dream catcher, you could look at this as a wreath, a web, you could look at this as a wreath of celebration. And another really beautiful thing to do to mark the seasons and the energy of the wheel is, if you're not that kind of person that perhaps decorates your front door or you shift up your altar seasonally, this is another beautiful way to work with change and work with the seasons. And what I feel is that the more that we work with the wheel, the more we understand the wheel, the easier that next card is going to be. Okay, but remember, in this deck, Justice is 8. Justice is not 11. 11 is strength. Okay? And yeah, so, and it makes sense with having strength. Here, that works for me. I can go strength after easily. It's just justice before that I find difficult. Okay. So I'm going to put the first card down by the dark moon, because that's kind of where we began. And then and then we're going to go around. So this is the Knight of Swords. So we're moving from the Knight of Swords to the King of Swords. Ooh, to the Ten of Wands, to the Ten of Cups. Okay, so what is the nature of this change was the question. The nature of this change, this nature of this cycle, the nature of this particular 28 or 29.5 day cycle is one of endings, for sure. We've got 2 tens. 10 of Wands, 10 of Cups. So the energy, and it's interesting that these are quite, these balance each other out. We also don't have another major arcanum, and we have 2 court cards. We have the Knight and the King of Swords. And so the nature of this change feels like an intellectual understanding. And I'm not sure if this is something we need to amp up or something we need to back off on. And only you will know that. This is where we run to the web to get the answer. We need to know the answer. We get focused on the details of something, the research of something. We trust so much in the written word, we forget to listen. So what, in one direction or the other, we need to really trust our intellect, to trust our, our wisdom, or this is telling us that this is an excess. And perhaps the excessiveness of this is this little fox has had enough. Look at this little fox is just lying down and surrendering, lying down on the ground. It's over, man. This fox needs to go into his den and to rest and recover. And when I see this Ten of Wands energy, I feel like this is about adrenal fatigue, stress, major, major stress. When I look at these 2 court cards, I feel stressful. I feel a lot of stress rising in my body, right? This is about busyness at work, control. It's about control and power. And as the adrenaline, if you're an adrenaline junkie, you know what this feels like. We can keep going on adrenaline, but then we burn out, we crash. And so this results in dehydration, stiffness in the shoulders, the neck, headaches. But this little fox is an animal. He knows what to do. He knows it's time to rest. And so this particular season, this particular lunar cycle is one about letting go of this. It's about one of letting go of this. And the reason we need to let go of this is because there's some emotions that need to flow. Perhaps we've been too much in our masculine. Too much in our masculine. Right? And if women are too much in their masculine, if men are too much in their masculine, it's not balanced. It's not balanced in any way. And so what can tend to happen is that instead of a balanced amount of emotion that trickles forth, the dam bursts, and I'm seeing a bursting dam in that 10 of Cups. Summer season, right? If you are in the Northern Hemisphere and you are in a place where it is warm, just kind of think about this in terms of the weather as well too. So the nature of this change. So does that make sense? Like why I would try to get, sometimes we pull one card as a clarifier. And I don't think that really, when it's a major arcana, is enough. We need to really reflect on the energy of the arcanum that is before us, so we can understand what's going on. Now, the other thing I said was, well, let's look to the symbols on the card. And interesting here that we have the sun at the peak, and the 10 of Wands here. So that kind of confirms and amplifies the energy of that 10 of Wands, don't you think? Too much fire. Too much fire. So perhaps you were training for a 10K run for all the wrong reasons. That's an example. I mean, this does not have to be about work. There's a sense of proving yourself. So in the suit of Wands, this is the suit of will. This is the suit of ego. It's also the suit of Dharma, right? And the suit of Wands helps us to stay on path. But sometimes we get addicted to that fire. We get addicted to that adrenaline. And so what happens is nature, and this is a lot of adrenaline. These are 3 adrenaline cards here. Nature comes in and presses the reset button. Look at all this kind of watery energy here and watery energy here. Yeah. So that's one of the things I do. Yeah. All right. So let's just, let's summarize. Let's summarize, and then I will say goodbye for this week. So 10. We want to look to the ones, the pages. We want to look and see if this is about an ace or this is a 10. We want to look at the symbols that are around the card. With the Justice card, we want to look and see about what's going on with the 2s. We want to look to the other pillars. Perhaps, I'm just thinking of like the 2 of Wands or something. There might be something particular in the 2 of Wands that is speaking to you. And I guess the big question here with both of these cards when they're sequentially in a deck is, are you resisting the change? Right? So this is an adjustment. This is a reset. And both these cards together speak to this reset. And should they come up together in a reading, that would be abundantly clear. Okay. So thank you for joining me this morning. I will be back in a little bit for live readings, and I've created I'm going to do sun and moon spreads. So again, something that looks at balance, something that looks at watery and fiery energy, and all that means, and the kind of questions and situations where a sun and moon spread might be helpful. So thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing some of you next week or later this afternoon. Namaste, blessed be, and take good care of yourselves.